Welcome to the YouTube channel for my new book, Seed of Israel, DNA Guide to Tracing Your Jewish Ancestry, available on Amazon in ebook and paperback versions. Links to order your copies are below. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button to get more videos like this. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Soviet Jews, the Jews who lived in the former Soviet Union. And I want to try to answer actually a question I posed yesterday at an event I attended. The question is, how did they know they were Jews? They lived under a very oppressive communist regime that put the anti-religious Marxist ideology into practice. And, how did they know they were Jews? Well, first of all, Jews were seen as an ethnicity, as a nationality, as an ethnic minority in the Soviet Union, and also in Russia until recently. That's the short of it. I'm going to go into that a little bit more, but I want to talk about the event I attended last night. It was called Power Protest, the movement to free Soviet Jews, and it's a gallery exhibit, a traveling exhibit created by the National Museum of American Jewish History in Philadelphia, and it's currently on display again at the Lawrence Family Jewish Community Center in La Jolla here in San Diego, California. And I really recommend if you're in town or if you live here to check it out. And it shows the personal stories of American Jewish activists and Soviet Jews who lobbied the government, the different administrations, the Soviet authorities to free these Jews, to liberate them, to allow them to immigrate out of the Soviet Union. And it's one of the few times that the Jewish community has really been united in all the factions, all the denominations, all the political ideologies, all Jews really united behind freeing the Soviet Jews. It was a very special time. And real quick, these Soviet Jews that wanted to leave were called refuseniks, who were denied exit visas. The Soviet Jews that were denied exit visas were called refuseniks. A refusenik, the definition of a refusenik, is a person in the former Soviet Union who has refused permission to immigrate, in particular a Jew forbidden to immigrate to Israel, specifically. So, and this refusal was by the Soviet Union and other countries of the Eastern Bloc. So it was an unofficial term for the Soviet Jews denied the ability to exit. So, how did they know they were Jews? They knew they were Jews because it was stamped on their passport, on their internal passport. So everyone had a Soviet passport. It was an identity document issued upon the laws of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, for a citizen of the USSR. And it contained data such as your name, your date of birth, your sex, your place of birth, your ethnicity, and your citizenship, as well as a photo of the passport holder. So, and sometimes at various developments in the Soviet passport system, it could include other information, such as your place of work, social status, marriage, children, and some other supporting information. So, the internal passports were used in the Soviet Union for identification of persons of various purposes. In particular, the passports were used to control and monitor the place of residence by means of propiska. Officially, propiska was introduced for statistical reasons, since in the planned economy of the Soviet Union, the distribution of goods and services was centralized. The overall distribution of population was to be monitored. For example, a valid propiska was necessary to receive higher education or to be employed. So let's get to the how the Soviet Union, Jews of the Soviet Union knew they were Jews. Again, they were denied for generations. They were, there were no synagogues. There were no Hebrew Bibles. There were no Hebrew language taught. They didn't know. They weren't able to celebrate the Jewish holidays. So it says, as mentioned, the internal passports identified every bearer by ethnicity, e.g. Russian, Ukrainian, Uzbek, Estonian, Jew, etc. When an individual applied for his passport at age 16, he had to select ethnicity of one of his parents, his or her parents. So that's how they knew. And there was that's how Jews were marked as Jews in the Soviet Union, through the internal passport. And that was specifically the ethnicity line was the fifth paragraph, the infamous fifth paragraph. So that lasted until 1997. So many years after the fall of communism in the Soviet Union. 1997 was the year that the ethnicity line was axed from Russian passports. Jews were, could be at various times, as anti-Semitism sometimes was more prevalent, sometimes not. It could certainly put Jews in danger in the Soviet Union, that they were so easily identifiable on their passports, on that fifth line, that they were an ethnic minority of Jews. The fifth paragraph. But there's actually an article in the Jewish News of Northern California from 1997, the year that the Soviet Russian finally got rid of the fifth line marking Jews, and they said there was actually a flip side to that, where yes it could instill some fear in the Jewish community, as far as being so easily labeled by the Soviet authorities and also the Russian authorities after the fall of the Soviet Union. But then it says it could also be possibly a good thing as an identifier, to identify Jews who are very assimilated and very intermarried and very secularized Soviet Jewry. So what this one they quote, I'm just going to end the video with this. They quote someone, let's see who this person is. Let's see. Mikhail Chelenov. He was the president of this was 1997, president of VOD, the Jewish Federation of Russia. So he says that no more than 5% of those born to a family with one Jewish parent chose to put Jewish on their papers as it became voluntary. And he says that he says that this is a step toward gradually changing the nature of the Jewish community here. Now it's going to be a community of Jews by choice. And then they quote demographer Mark Kupovetsky predicted, quote, "It will take a maximum of 2 generations of such families to forget about the Jewish roots." And then it says Chelenov said the change could lead to the creation of a new identity among Russia's Jews. Quote, "Dropping the fifth line will make me think harder how I should explain to my children what being Jewish means," said Savely Belinkay, a 33-year-old Moscow engineer. "Before, the fifth paragraph was doing much of this job for me." So, that's how Soviet Jews were identified. They were identified by the state. as an ethnic minority in Russia and the Soviet Union through that fifth line, the fifth paragraph in their internal passports. And thank you for watching.